Welcome back to the second part of this two-part series. In this episode, we're going to work on the actual painting and the decals of this prop. To begin with, I have either lost some footage or just forgot to actually record it. Basically, all I've done is sprayed all of the parts with filler primer, which is just another layer to help get in between the little cracks and gaps which we missed. Also, you'll see later on, I have glued in the little all-threaded bar into the bottom of the collar. Mine's longer because I haven't cut it down yet. And I also glued the spring into place. But back on track, what's happening here is I'm just, after spraying the filler primer and letting it dry, I'm now going over all of the parts with my sanding blocks. 60 all the way to 400 like I did before, just to make it as smooth as possible, and you will feel it getting smooth. And I'm just going to use the sanding sponge to get into all of the areas which I can possibly get into. When we finished going over all of our pieces, we're then going to go back over them all and wipe them down again to remove the dust. Be careful of doing this inside this orange filler primer. It gets literally everywhere, so do it in an outside ventilated area or just somewhere where you don't care where it goes. But I'm just going to wipe up all of the extra dust and loose bits and let it dry so that we can then move on to the paint. Again, I'm just going to assemble the top section to make sure everything fits together still. And make sure it all works, because again, we don't want that spring to jam up and stop working. So I'm just going to make sure that all works. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to come in with the grey primer to help the paint stick to a consistent surface, and it will also remove the yellow undercolor, so you won't see any of that come through. Once all of the parts have been sprayed and dried, I'm then going to go with the metallic silver on the caps and the lever or the spoon. And here, after I've done the collar in silver and it's dried, you want to make sure it dries, otherwise this tape is just going to peel up the layer. I'm then going to use some painter's tape around the circular bottom bit of the collar, and then I'm going to pinch another bit across the top along the line at the front. It could be a little bit finagly with the spring bit in the way. You may just need to tear it around the spring, but we're just going to put the tape across the top, and this is just to mask off that front piece where the hinge levers round on the spoon. When it's fully covered, we're going to just add a little bit extra on the back here, and then put a little bit around the spring itself to make sure it is fully covered. But once it's fully covered, then we can spray the main body of the grenade, as well as that little bit which we've left exposed on the collar with the green. I'm using this military paint for it, but once that has dried, you can then come back and peel off the masking tape or the painter's tape, and here you will see where we've masked off for the green, and it will have a nice clean line, as you can see. Once we've done that, we can then move on to clear coating the layers to make them pop and to protect them. Whilst we wait for the clear coat to dry, we can then move on to preparing the decals. So we're going to get these 2 sheets of decals if you bought the kit with the decals. These are the Rainbow Six specific ones for its M18 smoke grenade. And what we're going to do is break it into 2 pieces, the upper half and the lower half. This just makes it easier to put it on, as you've got a lot less to work with. First we're just going to lay it as flat as we can, and then we're going to take the transfer sheet and center it over it, working from the center and pushing down outwards to remove any air bubbles. You don't want any gaps or anything like that. You want it to be as flat as possible. And once we've worked every single little letter in, I'm then going to trim it to make it more manageable. And then we're going to peel the two away from each other, and the white lettering should stick to the transfer sheet. But if not, then you're just going to do what I'm doing here, where I'm going very slowly and very carefully, going letter by letter, pushing it into the transfer sheet, using my fingers on the other side to hold it in place. And I'm going to work in a straight line across. Don't go ahead on any of the lines or anything, otherwise you will mess it up. But the top section will just be these 3 layers of words, and it should be the same pattern. It should be 2 of the same pattern, and this should fit around the top section of the grenade. Also, in the middle of the of the decal sheet, there is a little line which I've added in extra, because on the bottom half of the decals, the little hyphen dash thing sometimes falls off or doesn't get released properly. So if you need to grab that to fix your decal, then it's there just in case as spare. How I align these is using that white line along the top of the decal. I'm going to line it up with the top of the body like this. I'm going to start in the middle of the decal and then work it around. I'm going to push down on the line, not on the letters themselves, just in case I need to put it back up again and reposition it. And I'm just going to put it around, and if the line lines up like this, then that means we're good, and then we can press down all of the individual letters and numbers, which should stick them to the grenade itself, as you see here. And then once we've pushed them all in, then we can go back to the transfer sheet and peel it back, revealing all the letters. You may need to push some of them down, especially as you go. Some of them might come up a little bit, so you're just going to push them down as you go along. And we're also going to remove that top white line, because it's not necessary for the Rainbow Six style grenade. You can keep it on there if you want, but it's literally just there to help me line up the decal. Once we've gone across all of the letters and the whole transfer sheet is come off, then you can see all of the letters. Be careful with them, because they can still be knocked off or peeled off. That's why we're just going over and touching them, make sure they're pushed down properly. Then we're going to move over to the second bit of the decal, the bottom half, which is a long line with a serial number in it. And we're going to use the thin bit of the transfer sheet. Again, doing the same thing, starting in the middle and pressing it out, removing any air bubbles and making sure that it's properly touched down into the sheet. And then we're going to go trim it again and then peel it back. And similar to what we did with the top section of the decals, we're going to slowly make our way across. Work even slower with this one, as these numbers are very thin and very small. They love to come loose and reposition themselves. So we're just going to take our time. I've sped the footage up. This took me a really long time to do this, so just take your time and press down each individual one. Here I went a little bit too quick, so I almost lost the E. So I slowed down a little bit, lost the 2, and then I lose that 2 there. So as you can see, it's not straight. That's why you want to take your time. But I have a fix for this in a second. So I'm just going to make sure to get it all, including those tiny little dashes that you can see there, and then peel it off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my weeding tool, which is what I use for the decals, and I'm going to lift the number off of the transfer sheet and then reposition it into the right position. This is the first way you can fix this mistake. This isn't the only way you can fix it. This is the first way, which I'm going to try, but I'll show you in a second what the other way is, because this doesn't ultimately work for me. I didn't line it up properly, but I'm basically just trying to push it into place and then tap it down to the transfer sheet. But the transfer sheet is not as sticky as the vinyl decal itself, so the vinyl gets stuck to the tool very easily. Once I finally have it in position, I'm going to try and release my fingers and tool from it without moving it again. And then we're going to go to the bottom half of the grenade, and again starting in the middle of the decal. This time it should have a bit of a thick part of the line. We're going to use that to now line up along the bottom edge, again working from the middle and wrapping it round, pressing only down on the line to wrap it round to make sure that it lines up on each side. And as you see here, it doesn't quite line up, it's a little bit off, so I'm going to peel it up, and then I'm going to reposition it to make it line up. I'm going to just pull it slightly down as I go across, and then now it should be in line. When we push it down, you'll see that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to go into all of the small individual letters and push them all down. You may be able to see that that 2 is still slightly unaligned, but we're just going to push down all of these letters and numbers, and then peel off that transfer sheet once again. Again, taking our time, going very slowly, and as you peel off the transfer sheet, pushing those numbers and letters back in again to make sure that they're stuck to the grenade body itself. Just moving very, very slowly, pushing them all down, moving over to the other side, and there you can see how that 2 wasn't placed properly. It's too close to the 0. I'm just going to line this up and fold it over. You can cut that down if you don't like the seam, or just leave it as it is. I just leave it as it is. Now I'm going to move over to that 2, and then I'm going to use my same tool, and I'm going to try and pick up the number off the surface of the grenade. This is my second attempt at fixing it, because this can scratch the grenade, and it does slightly. You may be able to see it. I slightly scratched the grenade, but if you need to, this is how you can fix it. So after I picked it up, I'm just going to stick it back onto the tool, and then use the tool to line it up properly where it's supposed to be. And then it looks like it was never misaligned in the first place. Pressing it down to make sure it's stuck in. And then once we're happy with the decals, we're just going to go over the whole thing with the clear coat, and the clear coat is going to add a layer on top, which is going to bond the decal to the grenade itself and stop it from falling off, stop it from being able to be knocked off, scratched off, whatever. And it protects the paint. Once we've done that and it's all dried and everything is good, I'm going to put the top cap onto the grenade itself, and then we'll go back to my super glue and put a lot of it inside the main body's tube. And once I've done that, then I'm going to just roll the tube around to create a seam along the top cap and the inside of the grenade body, which is going to glue that cap to the grenade itself. It's going to hold it in place. After I give it a second to dry, I'm then going to do the same thing along the bottom. I'm just going to put like a ring close to the bottom, and then I'm going to press the cap on and flip it over, and then do the same motion where I spin it around, hoping to create a nice seam to hold it together. Again, I'm just using super glue. You can use contact cements or epoxy resins. They will also work as long as they don't eat the PLA plastic, which most shouldn't. Once I've done that, I can then assemble the top of the grenade with the spring and the spoon and the pin, and then I'm going to use the thread after I've cut mine down, but yours should be cut down, and I'm going to thread it into that captive nut, which is going to take a little while for this one because it's slightly long. But once we've threaded it all in, then we have a completed grenade. The last thing to do is to pull the pin and make sure that the mechanism works, and then reassemble the grenade to make sure we can get the pin back in again. Once we've done that, then that's it, fully complete. So please, if you liked this video or if you found the tutorial helpful, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.